Welcome to day 3. Gosh, wow, firing through these. I've no idea whether anyone's been watching these or not. It's hard to tell, but I realise, well, I'd like a bit of a change of scenery because I keep doing these in my living room. So bear with me. Maybe I'll get a bit more creative with it and see if there's any different angles that I can give you to make this a bit more exciting. So today's day 3, and spoken about my journey, who I am, redundancy, and today I wanted to talk about diving. I wanted to talk about scuba diving. Not something I would really talk about, but I did say that this channel was going to be a little bit of fun. It was going to be something a little bit different to what I do on my business network. So, hello upstairs, whoever's banging on my ceiling. Maybe they'll be watching this, highly unlikely. So what I wanted to talk about to you guys today was about scuba diving. Now, the reason why now it feels like it's more relevant than ever is because the other night, one of my scuba dive friends over in the States posted on their LinkedIn that they had watched The Rescue, which is on Disney Plus. It's National Geographic. If anyone hasn't seen it, I would highly recommend it. It's a little bit anxiety inducing, I'm not going to lie. It's about the 13 Thai boys that were stuck in the cave back in 2018. And this is how my story starts. So I clearly remember when that happened in Thailand. It was about June, I think it was June 2018, and I had been in Thailand on and off for about 2 years. And I did my rescue dive. Basically how it started was I met a guy in Indonesia who was a dive instructor, and this friend had basically said to me, well, when you're in Thailand next, come over to this dive school and you would make an amazing dive master. And I've been diving for years up until that point. I'd had a few traumatic experiences, I'm not going to lie. Like most people when you start diving, I had the whole panicking thing, and it can stop you from going diving again, 100%. But sometimes you have to get out your own head, and this is kind of what this video is going to be about. So how this story began, yes. So I was in Thailand, and I had ruptured, or not ruptured, that's a bit dramatic. I damaged my eardrum. That's what I'd done. I was a dive master by this point. I've done my dive rescue, which you have to do to become a dive master. If anyone's interested, you basically do your open water, which allows you to dive to 18 meters. Then you can become an advanced open water diver, which allows you to dive to 30 meters. And really, most people, if you're a recreational diver and you're just doing it when you go on holiday, most people will either be an open water diver or an advanced diver. And I had done those courses back in 2012 when I was on a different round the world trip with a friend. So I already had a foundation. I'd been diving in the Gili Islands and Komodo National Park as well in Indonesia. Went back to Sri Lanka, back to Dubai, went to Myanmar, and then decided after Myanmar, I'm going to go diving again in Thailand. And I did my dive rescue course, which is mandatory. So you do like a first aid course, and then you do the rescue dive course. So reenacting saving people underwater, which is both scary and exciting at the same time. And then I'd done the dive master course. I'm also a rec trained diver. I've dived to 40 meters, and I've also done a nitrox course as well. And I must say, rec diving allows you to go inside of shipwrecks. A lot of people out there probably have done that without a qualification, and yes, you can do it without a qualification, but after having been in the situation, it can be very scary. And if you get a wipeout and you're not properly qualified, like, you're done for. you're just done for. Like the thought actually gives me anxiety. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. So I'd done all this training. I'd got back to the UK probably about 5 years ago today-ish, circa around that, right? It was around April, May time. And a few weeks later, I hear this story about people on Koh Tao who were my dive instructors at the time. So they would be master scuba diver instructors who were very, very qualified and experienced. I mean, I've done maybe 250 dives. Like, these guys have done thousands and thousands of dives, even though 250 might sound like a lot to a lot of people. And it turned out that they were all going to this place to go and assist with the rescue of these boys. And I remember speaking to this American friend at the time that her dive instructor, we'd been in different dive schools, her dive instructor had also gone to assist with this rescue. And having watched this documentary the other night, it just brought it all back. Like, I watched it. If anyone's seen the documentary, like, these guys that go into these caves are freaking hardcore. They are so hardcore. Like, if you've never been diving, you'd watch the documentary and you just think, like, this is a suicide mission. Like, you're absolutely nuts. You know, I freaked out about going inside a shipwreck with a wire, like, with a rope, like, let alone going through potholes while diving with a tank on your back and your sides for 2 hours, one way. Like, one way. What? Like, these guys must have the mental stability and control that I have just never seen. And something really resonated with me at the end of the documentary, because the guy said, like, you know, how detached from life do you have to be so that you can put yourself in that kind of position where you're swimming through a tunnel for 2 hours one way to rescue people. Like, of course it's amazing to rescue people, but, you know, just the thought of being in those tight spaces just gives me the shivers. Anyway, what diving did teach me was control of the mind. And there's a lot of books out there about how the vastness of the sea has this effect on us. I think it's a book called Out the Blue. I can't remember, but I'll have a look and I'll see if I can find a link. But there's an amazing book out there, and it's all about the blue mind, basically, and how living by the ocean, living by the sea, you know, seeing this vast expanse has this effect, this psychological effect on us as humans. And there is almost this existential realization that you get when you are standing in front of a vast mass of water that goes way beyond your personal figurative imagination, right? Because you know, in your mind, you can see the horizon and the water just drops off. But we know that, well, unless you're a flat earther, we know that the world is round. I'd hope it's not a circle. That'd be quite flat, but in a circle rather than a square. Anyway, we know that the Earth is sphere, right? So even though we're looking towards the horizon and the water just drops off, in actual fact, it continues round past through continents, right, and vast expanses of space that we can't necessarily see unless we are in space, which gives a whole different perspective. Conversation for another time. So being under the water gives a whole different perspective of meaning to this blue expansive space. And when I think back, there were times where I definitely had anxiety when I was diving. Now, I don't want to say anxiety, right? Because divers will be like, well, you shouldn't really go diving if you're anxious. Well, it was anxious, not anxiety, right? It was feeling anxious about not knowing what to expect, but it was also this massive amounts of excitement of what we're going to see today. Are we going to see a shark? Are we going to see a whale shark? Are we going to see a manta ray, stingray, turtle? So much stuff, so much life. And that's one of the reasons why I love diving because you just never know. It's nature. You never know what you're going to see. Of course, it's disappointing if you don't see a shark, but it's also amazing if you do, unless you're scared of sharks. But let's talk about fears in a completely different video, because there is something about diving and the mindset which I think is worth exploring. And compared to other situations which are challenging, the unique thing about scuba diving is you can't talk. You can't talk when you're under the water. Like, if you have a panic attack, it's not like you can just tap your mate on the shoulder and be like, even if you're in a cave, yeah, and you're not underground, you can tap your mate on the shoulder and you can say, excuse me, I'm freaking out right now. Okay, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here. You can't do that when you're scuba diving. There are procedures to follow. You can't just bolt up to the surface. In theory, you could bolt up to the surface, but it's very likely that you would cause not only psychological damage, but also physiological damage to your body, right? So the thing about diving is it's about the physiology of the body that meets the psychology. And we don't often talk about the psychology, because one thing that we're taught as dive masters, and I've done this before, is when someone's panicking, you sort of control their breathing and you go, okay, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, calm down, it's okay, you know, everything's going to be fine. But meanwhile, in your head, you're thinking, is this person going to be okay, right? And you don't have the tools underwater. You have to like sign language, help me, hi, I'm freaking out, let's go up, I've got to go, got to get out of here. And generally you can see the panic in someone's eyes. Like if someone's panicking and they need to go up to the surface, you can see it, right? They are freaking out if they haven't already waited for you and they're already at the surface. You know, they've already gone and they're out there. So, you know, I think what I wanted to reflect on is just the ability to be alone with your thoughts in that moment. Right. And what it really did teach me was we are much stronger mentally than we think we are. You know, if you are in a situation where you think you need to get out of, in your own head, you have all the tools you need to overcome what challenge you're experiencing right now. Whether you think it or not, it's only when you're in a situation, when you are truly left to your own devices, in your own head with no one to contest those, that you have to overcome it. And a lot of people don't, right? A lot of people bolt up to the surface. But then you get madmen like these guys in the rescue documentary. I'm not going to try and remember their names because I can't remember. But yeah, you get these madmen who are just so on the opposite end of the spectrum. You look at them and you go, wow, how have you got such mental control? And I don't think they even know how or why they have it, right? Just when you do something 100 times over, it becomes second nature. It becomes something that you're used to, something that you do every day, like getting in the car and driving down the road. Like the first time you drive a car, you look at all the buttons and you're like, wow, there's a dashboard. Where's the indicator? How do I put the windscreen wipers on? How do I lock the doors? How do I turn the radio down? Like there's all these buttons, yeah. In the same way that when you go diving, you've got your BCD on, you've got the nitrox tank. You're like, oh yeah, not nitrox tank. You've got your air cylinder, should I say? You've got your regs. You know, they might tell you how much gas and air you've got all these things, you've got your weights on, and your mask over your face, and your fins on your feet, and there's just so much going on. So I think once you start to do something over and over again, you get this unconscious competence, right? You know what you're doing without even thinking about it. And even though I have panicked and freaked out, I've also been told that I'm a very calm diver, which doesn't feel like me at all. But I'm sure that everyone has those moments where you've been really confident and good at something, and then you've also had times where you've not been so good at doing exactly the same thing, right? It's normal. That's what happens, and we try to show up as our best selves, but in reality, that's just not always the case. Anyway, I think this documentary was absolutely amazing. I'd highly, highly recommend it. If you haven't been diving, scuba diving, don't watch this video and think that's what scuba diving is, because that is very, very technical. It is very specific. There are, as the documentary says, only a handful of extremely qualified people in the world who not only have the skills, but have the mental stamina to do it. Even the Thai Navy SEALs had to call in the technical professionals. So I think the lesson that I wanted to share from this is that, yeah, you are a lot stronger than you think you are. Scuba diving's amazing. It gives you a lease of life. The world's amazing. Life is amazing. Nature is amazing. Conservation projects, 100% worthwhile. I'm really passionate about conservation projects. Whenever I get the chance, I do try to go diving in places where I can help with conservation projects. It's my way of giving back. I love to coach people, but the bigger impact for me is giving back to this silent world that is bustling with life, but we just don't see it. And it's out of sight, so it's out of our minds. And it's only when you go and experience it and you dive in the same spot for a year that you really appreciate the magnificence of how these creatures live. And in the same way that you drive down the road to the shop, they live in their little hole in the coral. Like, it's amazing. It's fascinating. I'm absolutely in awe with like the smallest things in life, as well as these vast expanses. You know, I think it's about leveling up and leveling down. Anyway, I hope this has just given you some insight into diving. The Rescue, National Geographic, Disney Plus. At the moment, at the time of making this video, it might change in future, but I would highly recommend watching it. I feel like there was another documentary. There's The Octopus Teacher as well. Also, fascinating documentary. And what was the other one? The coral, I can't remember. If I find it, I'll put it in the comments, because also I think more people should know about it, quite frankly. So, sun's out. Coming to the end of the week in April. Wow, April. This year is absolutely flying. Anyway, this topic has been a little bit different to some of my others, so I hope you found it useful on some level. Maybe a little bit of perspective, something completely different, who knows. But yeah, I hope to see you all in my next one. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share.